Welcome, my name is Tishar and this is StarMade. In today's episode I thought it would be fun to start off with half a ship. So I cut this ship in half to give you a better overview of the interior space we have. And as you can see here, I started with this docking bay for the worker bees that you've already seen. And then we continue on in this space with the big hangar bay and the industrial area below it. And then we have this section of the ship with all the different decks that houses basically all the crew amenities. And of course, we have a space reserved for systems like power, and below here for the shields and the additional, it's mostly sensor chambers, by the way. So it's going to be a heavy scanner based ship. So this gives you an overview as well of what we still need to do, because there's still a lot of empty space. Especially the lower deck, I need to do a bit of designing over here around the orange deck layer. And I did a bit of work on the area over here in the big storage containers, the blue and the orange ones. So it now connects to this hallway. Then when you go in here, you've got this big space with a lot of storage racks. Still needs a lot of detailing and especially some lighting because it's pretty dark. But yeah, this is enough space to store a lot of stuff in here. This is the orange storage area at the moment, and I made a couple of small changes or big changes depending on how you look at it. I put in a lot of storage, but I also put in some of the fixed storage containers and also some fixed storage blocks, just to make it look there's something stored here, no matter how much actual storage is in use. So it will always have some sort of decoration within the storage racks. I also added these yellow sort of crane things in here. This is something similar I did in the Radiant Dawn many years ago. So basically this is a thing that if you press this button, it basically allows you to automatically store things at different levels. It doesn't go to specific levels, but it just animates if you pull it in that this bit is going down. Then you can put the storage boxes on here and then send it to the designated area within the storage racks, so you can store it at specific levels and specific sections of the storage racks. Still need to do a bit more detailing in this area. I did add some forklifts over here, and I added this door. This door connects to this area over here. This is the main EVA storage units for the entry to the worker bee section. So basically everything that the worker bees bring in over here, for example with mining or something like that, can be temporarily stored in this area over here. This is below the what's going to be the commands section of this worker bee area, and then basically brought down through this airlock and then directly to this storage area. And this is connecting to the blue storage area over here, and this one I haven't finished quite yet. I started putting in some of the fixed decorations for the storage, but I haven't put in the actual storage blocks, so that's still a job I need to do. But yeah, the cranes themselves do work already, so you can see it without the storage block being in the way. But like I said, still need to be a bit more detailed in these areas over here, add some additional lighting, and then this area should be quite done as well. I finally started on the last section I had in the ship with the lower orange deck. I put in this big factory door to the factory floor, or whatever it's going to be, industrial floor I'm calling it. This connects basically to a large hallway over here that connects directly to the main elevator over there. I've got those doors here on the side as well, and these serve a particular function. So if you go in here, then you can follow this blue path. This is basically our highway for this industrial zone, because there's going to be a lot of machinery in the middle over here, and you can access it of course through this big door, but the main pathway to transport goods is going to be through this safe side passage over here, so on both sides. Then you can basically avoid all the intricate machinery here in the middle. So that's the plan at least. I still need to continue working on the rest of the layout of this deck section, but that should be the last part I have to puzzle out. I did some work on the deck above here as well. That's the yellow level over here. You might already see it that I have a lot of windows in this hallway now, because like I said before in my last episode, I thought that the deck design was a bit too much hallway, so I changed it a bit by putting in these windows. You get a very transparent open floor like design, but still have separate rooms for the different type of workshops I want to put in here. So that worked out for me, I think. And then I closed off this hallway in this end with a door, just to have a dedicated little hallway for our escape pods over here. So these doors can be opened separately, by the way, but they will close once you will launch one of these escape pods. So yeah, there's dedicated space for that, so it will not interfere with the rest of the deck layout unless you explicitly go there. As this is still the same with the connection to the main elevator and this airlock to the yeah, what I'm calling the main engineering or sort of reactor core that I've got going here. Did put in some detailing in here and some wall designs, but it still needs a bit more before this is done, but at least it's blocked out. We've got this nice overview from the top. This is the green level that connects over here. So this is our control room for the main reactor. And after a bit of work, I created a layout for this orange deck as well. Just a couple of hallways and some side rooms like this over here. These are very long, narrow rooms, but I have some ideas for those, and some other spaces that I'm not exactly sure what to do yet. So for example, I've got this bigger room over here, then in the middle over here I've got some bigger rooms as well. So for example, this central one, then across the hall there's this one. But this gives me at least a layout I can work with and put this stuff in there, details. And this also means that I more or less have every layout of the decks blocked out. So now that I can start working on filling all the spaces in between. So for example, if you look over here, the spaces between the interior like this and the exterior wall of the hull itself of the ship. So I'm going to double layer the outer hull, so probably add a layer of yellow armor below it, and then fill up the rest of the empty space with motherboard, like I tend to do. This allows me to get a better view of the interior space as well once I do that, because if I move between floors, then I'm not stuck in those dark spots between the floors. And it also yeah, is for my own aesthetic that I'm doing that. Just so if the ship is ever blown up, you got a more or less filled interior that you can see damage in. This is an example of what I meant, so with the double raying hull and filling up the rest of the space with motherboards. As you can see here, I'm swimming basically in solid blocks, and I can really take a good look at the interior from outside the rooms now. This helps with the interior detailing as well, and of course it looks nice. For example, I've got some logic rooms over here you can access through this walkway, so it does serve a purpose. It's basically the animation clock and some other logic for the doors, etc. of this area. And over here you can see that I'm still working on double layering the hull. So I'm adding the yellow hull on the inside. Then I have to fill up the rest of the space with the motherboard. One of the things I tend to do with interior as well is designing interior spaces that you can't access. And for example, these brown round tanks over here is one example of that. There's nothing you can do to go inside unless you remove blocks, but I did put something inside. So basically this is a tank to hold liquid, so I represented that with lava. So it looks like lava is basically put into this area through this port, access port over here. Then each of the tanks have a different amount of lava in them, so this holds a lot more. Then this one nothing, and then this one a little bit as well, but in a different shape. So yeah, like I said, it's not something you can access, but it's still there. So if the ship is ever shut up, you can see it. But the rest of the interior, I tend to do that with that space like this. For example, I did it with the collector training vessel to add different elements to it, just to fill up space, but only visible when you damage the ship. But I don't think I have time to do it for this ship, so I just filled it with motherboards, and that should do for the damage effect when this ship is shot. So I completed this section now for the cargo storage, but I still need to do the rest of the ship, so I'm still working on that. At the moment I'm in the back of the ship within the power block that I placed in the engine section. And as you can see here, I filled every last dead space I had. So now you can really look at the interior of each deck from a different perspective from the outside. Still needs to do a lot of detailing, so I'm rushing a bit because the deadline is approaching and I don't have a lot of time left over. But as you can see here, you can now basically fly through the ship and then look into the different deck layouts from inside the walls like this, and everything is nicely filled up and spaced out for what I need for my interior detailing. But yeah, that's a whole nother story, because I'm going to have to go through each deck and each room to decide what it's going to be. And the way I tackled this interior detailing is basically go to each of the rooms that I already know what I wanted it to be, and then go through each floor like that. So this is, for example, the entrance area to the medical bay. So I added this reception desk over here, and basically one of those, what do you call them, mobile beds. And this area already seen, but I added some of the office supplies over there, some additional decoration. Then we've got it's basically going to be a morgue and a operating table over here. So we've got some detailing in here, and same goes for the rest of the floor. You've already seen this middle area with the hydroponics. It's basically the same, but for the lab areas, I just put in some stuff just to indicate what it is. But it's not fully detailed yet. It's the last pass I'm going to do. But I just added some of the detailing that I already had from my previous build with the collector trading vessel, and put them in where it is appropriate, or just build new stuff where it was needed. For example, if you go to a lower deck, yeah, this is the residential deck. I did some basic decoration for the normal crew quarters, and did some experimenting with, like I said in a previous episode, adding some of the personal touches. So we've got this terminal over here. Every room has one, and I am planning to add some personal touches, personal messages on these terminals, and sometimes not. For example, this is just the login screen, and sometimes it's something more you can do, like pressing a button and then reading the rest of the story, just to add a bit of flair to each of the areas. And I need to do that, of course, for more of the decks. For example, I did some detailing as well, you've seen over here, but I need to continue that for the rest of the rooms as well, because they're still quite empty. One of the bigger areas I needed to detail was this cafeteria, so I added a whole lot of tables and chairs in here, some vending machines you get drinks from, and this is now a more livable space. Also did some detailing on the quarters for the captain. So the captain and the first mate have a bigger room, so they have this this office room in the front here that connects to a bigger bedroom and of course a bathroom, and it's mirrored on this side but slightly different in layout. So you got a bit of a variation in crew quarter design. But the rest on this deck is just the same crew quarters I already showed you, with the bed and the lock-in screen on here. So this residential deck is more or less done. Still a bit of detail to do, like for example I haven't put in the lights on the ceiling here correctly yet, but it's getting there. I also started working on this industrial area down here. I decided to basically create 3 parts within this industrial area, and then each part has a dedicated system for something. And I decided to reuse an idea I had for my big home station I was building a while back, and still am building, by the way. So I had this this big factory floor in there. So I had this this robotics bay with all these robotics arms in there, and it would fit really nicely in this section of my ship, and I wanted one, so I built one. Or basically copy pasted one and then modified it a bit, because I quite like how this lines up, because this has access to the main door over here, so you can basically wheel out whatever you're building over here or tearing down, and then moving it out to wherever it needs to go. And then I've got still 2 sections left over for different machines. And of course this section over here for basically handling the cargo, moving it up or down to the different floors. So now you can see a lot more how the process of the items will flow. So basically everything is processed over here, then moved here, and then moved up to the main docking bay over here. Then, yeah, as you can see, moved into these big containers. For the factory floor, I decided to start building a factory setting on this side of the floor first. In the middle section, I still have to decide what to do with. And this section is basically dedicated to processing hull plates. So in some sort of way, it's going to be processed by these machines, by sorting it and crushing it to plates or whatever it needs to go. Then going to this machine, and then it's going to be basically transported by this yellow thing over here. Then we press this button, and then it opens up this oven. Then the machine moves in here, puts the stuff inside, and then it's basically melted down. And then basically by the same process is pulled out of the oven and put back into the system. Then it comes back out in the back over here in this area, spit out by this machine, and then you can collect it from here and then transport it through this blue hallway to wherever it needs to go. This is not something I completely made up myself, because if you look up the processing plans for, I believe it was aluminium processing and melting it down, it's something similar in setup like this. Not specific these machines, but this yellow contraption and this oven bit is something similar. So it's quite interesting to look up. So that's also a good tip if you want to think of something in the way of machinery or whatever you need to do. Just look up existing processes. It's quite interesting to see the kind of machineries they already have within factories. This long hallway would be quite boring if I didn't have these windows in the side. It gives you a really nice view on the industrial work floor over here. And as you can see here in the middle, I do have a different machine built already. And this is some sort of sorting and recycling machine. So basically you put stuff in this machine. It goes on the conveyor, and then these robotic arms pick out specific items to be recycled, and then it goes through here. Then you can put stuff in this grinder and in this machine, and it's basically spit out as cargo containers you can move around. So this basically gives me 3 different types of tasks this workflow can do. Basically construction with this robotic bay, recycling with this recycling plant, and melting down stuff with this oven bit. So three-step process, I think, for recycling components from space junk. Works out quite nicely, I think, and it looks quite busy and industrial like this with all the machinery. Yeah, worked out quite nicely. Still need to do a lot of work on the additional interior floors as well, but I started work on the yellow floor, as you can see here, yellow stripes, with the additional machineries I already had for my first workshop. So this is basically something that creates the hull hardness if you really need it, and these are some sort of machines that basically process materials or perhaps more refine them if it's needed. It's not a factory setup that can produce a whole lot, but it's a workshop that can produce some of the components that you might need, or process them to ship them out. And I'm going to, of course, think of different types of workshop I can place in the different areas, also on the other side of the ship, because it's still quite empty over here. But each of the workshops will have a different theme. And workshops done. In this one, I decided to go for some sort of droid repair bay. Got this central platform over here. You can put the droid in, and then whatever you need to do with it. Some sort of examination table and some storage for our little droid buddies over here that are in sleep mode. Might have put in a bit of an Easter egg in here, but you'll have to find out once you download this ship. On the other side of the ship, I've got two additional areas. For example, this one I decided to dedicate to paint, basically. So all the paint colors over here, got a paint booth, paint shakers, things like that. Some table to work on, and this is basically drying cabinets. You can put smaller things in. And then on the other side over here, we've got a area that deals with chemicals. So it's all kinds of fluids. Whatever you need to do with it, mixing it up, creating chemicals, etc. So we've got quite a nice selection of different workshops now over here. So this floor is more or less done. On this side, this connects to the main hallway that's basically next to the industrial area. I decided to create this sort of lecture hall, basically a briefing room, big briefing room, because this is closely connected to the hallway, this one that connects to the areas over here, the docking areas. So all the pilots basically can be briefed in this area, and then once they're done, they can go out and do their tasks. So this more or less completes a whole bunch of the front section of the ship. So I've got my docking area above, my industrial area below, docking areas to the side, and then the yellow floor done. So I think I just need to add a whole bunch of things to the orange floor down below, and then the interior is more or less done. For the orange floor, I decided to go for a representation of the basic ship components. For example, this is my shield generator, and I decided to go for two of them next to each other. Then over here we got something that represents the shield capacity. Still need to add some of the detailing to it. Then I still need to do something with this area over here. Just put in some tanks over here, but on the other side I made it a bit more interesting. I created this area. No idea what it represents, but it looks technical, so yeah, something to support the ship. So this more or less fills in every space I have. There's some of the spaces I didn't show. For example, on the green level over here, this is where the life support, etc. is. This is, for example, my heat regulation room, and I added some additional interaction with it, so you can basically pull out these components. Then, for example, I got some for the gravity, or not gravity, the mass enhancers, an area, and this is for water treatment. So basically water is pumped in here, and then you can basically clean it, and it's pumped out then. But yeah, this is more or less all the interior of the ship filled in, including of course the front areas. but I'm not going to show everything because that's going to probably take too long, and this episode is already quite long. So I leave that to you to explore within the download, because I am going to, of course, upload this ship because it's more or less done. Although I still have a long list of small details I want to add and fix. But don't worry, because I quite lied to you guys. This episode was recorded about a month ago, so I still have plenty of time to complete the ship and add all the details and fix all the logic that I want to fix. And by the time you're watching this, the ship will be quite done. Hope you enjoyed this little series of building this industrial ship. Go check it out in the link below if I don't forget to put it there, and I'll see you next time.